On the other floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To explain to the community what has happened and what the reason why I introduced Resolution 58-15, Council Member Danny Paleka and I hosted 4 community meetings in Puna. And as we heard from the community while we had those meetings, we tallied up all the issues, and one of the main issue that we heard from the community was the geothermal drilling ban. And what I did was I spoke to our corporation council and tried to ask what their stand is regarding this ban. And then I saw the video of the previous council of how this ban got initiated. And then I spoke with the director of planning to find out what's the status regarding this ban. So I thought very long and hard regarding this and tried to figure out where and what I was gonna do. And from what I've learned is that we have currently in our books, if you just look at it plainly, a ban on the operation of geothermal drilling at night. And is it my job to interpret that provision? And I went back to just a simple, basic foundation, and I started looking into my principles. But I even went back further into reading my oath in office. And when I got elected into council, I do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Hawaii to the best of my ability. And when I looked into our Constitution, first I would like to start off with the state's Constitution, and that when I looked at the first Bill of Rights, there's 20 Bills of Rights. The first one says that all government authority is given by the people. And when I started looking into the first 3 articles of our federal government, the first article is the legislative power of our Congress. And the second is the executive power is based on the president. And our third is the judicial courts interprets and apply the laws. So I had the idea of moving forward with first being respectful to the current plan, and requested and drafted a resolution and request to comply with the law. And the next step was Resolution 59-15. I know it wasn't read to the record, but just to point out is that I wanted to bring this to the judicial, and they would interpret the law and make a action so we can move on. With all the interpretations out there, we can have a final one and move on. That's what I would like to see, and that's why I did this. If you have any questions, I can definitely bring up the representative for PGV and would like to formally ask them. I know they sent their testimony, but maybe if you would like to go on record, if you would...
You have 30 seconds.
If you would like to support this resolution, if I can call the representative for PGV up. Now, if you could state your name and title. And I just wanted to not argue with you, but I just wanted to ask you, just be it resolved that I know you mentioned in your testimony is that you will comply with all the laws in the county and the state, and I respect that. And I just want to ask you to be it resolved by the Council of the County of Hawaii that PGV is respectfully requested to reduce the noise impacts to residents during the night by complying with ordinance number 12-151.
My name is Mike Kalekini. My title is Senior Director for Hawaiian Affairs for Puna Geothermal Venture in Ormat. And my response to your request is no.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Councilman Ilgan, with all due respect, my name is Thomas Ye, attorney for PGV. Part of the difficulty, and I agree, we shouldn't be here arguing with you. That's not our purpose. But as we pointed out, it's very difficult to practically comply with the terms of the ordinance, and we understand the request of you to have them voluntarily comply, but if you take a look at the ordinance, it talks about all drilling and all drilling operations. And maybe we haven't done it as artfully as possible, but when you talk about drilling operations, even though you might stop drilling, related to those operations, in order to maintain well integrity and the safety of that well, whatever phase you are in, you need to have hydraulic pumps running and other activities that are going on so that you do not have issues that are going to compromise both safety of the plant and personnel, but the safety of the community. So to some extent, the ordinance, because it's so overbroad, accomplishes a result, if it was to be followed, that actually compromises public safety without the benefit of eliminating noise at night, because you need to have this equipment running in the evening. So it's not that PGV is refusing to comply, but when you have an ordinance that's so broad in terms of all the activities that it purports to prohibit, you can't do it. And so if you're going to drill, and you're going to drill in order to produce power to more people, this is what you have to do. And so that's why it's very difficult for PGV to officially say we're going to comply. On the other hand, I think is what Mr. Kalakini has said, is that just as with all other kind of activities that are regulated in the agricultural district that have the very same noise standards, it will comply. It will comply with the standards that the EPA sets for their injection wells, with DOH requirements for injection wells or production wells. Those are the things that Mr. Kalakini was talking about. But on the face of the ordinance itself, it really is something that needs to be taken another look at, because we have this purpose or intention that has been stated in the previous council of what it's trying to accomplish, but when you take a look at the ordinance itself, it doesn't do that. It doesn't even speak to noise in particular. So that's the basic difficulty with saying, yes, we will. I don't think the question is quite that simple, but hopefully that provides some explanation of what the position is. Thank you.
Thank you. I think your 5 minutes were finished. We'll go through the first round, and Mr. Onishi, you're next.
Mr. Chair, this is a question to you. I have questions about what happened back in 2012, because basically I'm the only council member that was on that council during that time and when this bill's passed. And so there's, I guess, things that I want to say out in public, but I don't know if I can do that. So I wanted to go into executive session to ask Corp Counsel, and also to, I guess, have Corp Counsel explain to members, the new members, of what had happened at that time during the executive session. So is that possible?
I think It is possible,
So
yes.
I would make a motion to go into executive session.
Second for discussion purposes.
It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session regarding
Discussion with Corp Counsel.
discussion with Corp Counsel.
About details that had happened in 2012 when we also went into executive session with them, because right now we do not have any records of that, so you folks cannot see that. Okay, so I would want at least you folks to see what had happened at that time.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Ms. Poindexter?
Yeah, I would support going into executive session because I am definitely not familiar at what was discussed
Right.
in a previous executive session that could be very, very helpful for me as well. So that is the reason why I am supporting this. Thank you.
Mr. Iligan?
I also support going to executive session. I feel that all information should be made available to the council members, and we can decide as a body to how to move forward. Thank you.
Ms. Willie? Turn on your microphone.
I don't have a problem with that, but I would like to ask the representatives of PGV, some questions that have no need to be in, yes, so I would feel that we should all have a chance to speak, just as Councilmember Iligan did, before going into executive session.
The motion on the floor is to go into executive session.
Okay, so
just
I'm
regarding the
asking-
executive session motion.
So I'm asking that we don't go into executives right away. I feel that's cutting off those of us that have things that we want to say that don't necessarily have to be in executive session. And people can leave, and so I don't think it's fair.
Thank you, Ms. Willie. Mr. Chung?
Thank you. I think that the information that Mr. Onishi is looking for in the executive session might be more germane to Resolution 59-15 instead of this one, which, we're just asking PGV to, kindly comply with our ordinance. They said no. I don't know what the legal issues are in that one, but I think we should wait until we get into Resolution 59-15 to go into an executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Onishi.
Okay, well, to first Ms. Willie's one, because if we do question PVG, but what about the public? Because we could bring up certain people from the public to ask them questions to and what they had said in testimony, right? So then it wouldn't end. So by we go into executive session, and I'll be answering now. Mr. Chung's, I guess, concern was that at that time I don't know how far I can go too, but it was discussed on the understanding of what the intent was when we passed this. Okay, and so that's what I want to get, and I want Corp Counsel to at least explain that part, and I can also find out what I can say afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Onishi.
I'm in agreement that we dispose of this matter first, and if executive session does come up, it should come up in the 59-15.
Thank you.
Just-
Ms. Yoff.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say we could either ask Mr. Onishi to withdraw that motion at this time, or we would have to vote on it and make a decision that way.
Okay. I know Mr. Onishi's uncomfortable about making certain statements in public regarding executive session matters that happened previously, and I know there's stuff that he wants to say related to what's in Resolution 58-15. So that's where I think he's going, and I understand everybody else's concern about 59-15, but I just want to make that clear. Mr. Iligan.
Okay, I want to keep moving forward. And from my understanding, from what Mike just told me, I feel like even if we pass this reso, he already gave me an answer. So to move things forward, I'm going to withdraw this, and if we could read Resolution 59.15, and then we can address the executive session and Margaret's concerns of speaking about some questions that need to be put on the public. So at this time, I'm going to, can I withdraw the bill while it's still on that other motion? Or does it have to be on the main
Mr.
motion?
Clerk, is that appropriate?
We have Mr. Onishi's motion
Yeah.
for executive session,
If you
so
could-
that needs to
Okay, I'll
be
withdraw.
taken care of.
Okay, and I
withdraw
withdraw
my second.
58-15.
Okay, resolution 58-15 has been withdrawn. Thank you, Mr. Iligan. Mr. Clerk, resolution 59-15.
Resolution 59-15 requests the Office of the Corporation Counsel to initiate a declaratory judgment action to determine the applicability of ordinance number 12-151 to Puna Geothermal Ventures, PGV, drilling operations under Geothermal Resource Permit Number 2 and/or to seek injunctive relief. Request the Office of the Corporation Counsel to re-examine issues relating to PGV's intent to conduct 24-hour drilling operations at production well KS-16. Reference Communication 93, introduced by Mr. Iligan, waived AWESC.
Mr. Iligan.
I move to approve Resolution 59-15.
It's been moved by Mr. Iligan, seconded by Mr. Onishi. Mr. Iligan, you have the floor.
As we spoke previously, I am comfortable either we go into executive session or we talk openly, publicly, and whichever you decide, Chair, I am comfortable in whichever method you want to take care of this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Iligan. I know I'm going to let Ms. Willie speak openly and all members openly before, if anybody wants to speak before we go into executive session. So, Ms. Willie, you have the floor.
I would like for us to be able to speak openly at first, and then I have no problem after we each have the opportunity to. I still had some questions that I wanted to ask PGV representatives, and I think I won't get into anything else, but I feel that we should do what we can openly. We're supposed to be open government. I actually have no problem having Mr. Onishi say what he felt from the 2012. That was an open meeting. I've watched it on YouTube, and saying that publicly and what was the intent and what was discussed. That is one issue. It's not certainly the only issue or the decisive issue. So I just want to promote that we all have the opportunity.
Absolutely. You have the opportunity right now.
Do I have the opportunity right now?
We're on resolution
Okay.
59-15.
Okay, I have one question. What if you were to cut, just trying to come to some kind of compromise, not drill over the weekends or some period? In other words, instead of going on, off every day, I realize there's practical issues, there's greater costs, there's costs. I think one of the things that's changed from 2012 to right now is a much higher level of stressors, of whether it's the hurricanes and the higher level of fog and the lava. And when you have constant stressors, to add one more constant stressor, it's really cataclysmic, I think. So I appreciate what you all are saying, but I think there is, there are equities. It's not like, we're not talking right and wrong here, and just trying to work out the same thing if you had someone drilling in your bedroom all the time, and plus your fear the lava's coming and the fog in everybody's eyes. So I just want to throw that out. I'll let you comment in a moment. I'd also
Ms.
like...
Wait, a point of information.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, okay, so Resolution 59-15 is requesting Corp Counsel to re-examine issues per our PGV's 24-hour drilling operations. So I think more questions should be referred to Corp Counsel instead of to PGV, because we're asking, I guess this resolution is asking Corp Counsel to look into, right?
Yeah.
And maybe Mr. Iligan can kind of explain better about what this resolution is all about.
And can I respond to him with his point of order?
Real quickly, the point of information is correct, that the resolution is to ask Corporation Counsel to initiate a declaratory judgment action to determine if the applicability of this ordinance.
And I appreciate that, but what I want to say is that anyone where you're dealing with a problem, and that's why we would be talking to Corp Counsel, the best way is to try to avoid it. So I just want to throw that in here. We're all trying to we have a community, everyone here on both sides, and just put that other option in the mind, that you want how to settle it. So at first glance, I agree with how you're looking at it, but I really think we're trying to solve a problem here. And that's all I'm asking. If you said to me, no, there's no way that we can do it other than constant, then we're up against a black and white issue. So I'm trying to get this from being black and white. So if you have any comments you'd like to make, I'd like you to.
Well, before we respond to that, I was just going to ask if there are any other questions you have, because this is something that, implicates some policy questions for the company as well as operational. I don't think we've been asked that question before, so it may be something we need to kind of meet and confer about before we actually respond to that. And I think you can understand that too. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not sure
but
if
you
any other
understand what I'm getting at and why I'm doing
I do,
that.
certainly.
Okay, I have one other question. Is you had your permit at DLNR permit in December 14 in order to drill this well. That would be a new permit that does talk about compliance with all existing state, county laws. I think that does raise the issue for me. Okay, this is now a county law ordinance and whether that applies. And I'll tell you sort of my last point, which is related before you respond, is really just in terms of where you discuss vested rights. And vested rights are correct, and retroactive laws are generally prohibited under the Constitution, et cetera, statutes. But at the same time, there can be retroactive laws where it impacts significantly the health and safety issues, where there's been a change in circumstance. I see a change in circumstances from 2012, 2014. So I'm just trying to brainstorm here. I'm not, going at what the legal issues, but I just think there are things that are, there are a number of both factual and legal issues. And I just thought maybe if we could take the constant out and people knew there was some point they would have some relief through this.
You have 30 seconds.
And, well, since I have 30 seconds, I'll just add my last point, is just with all the lava, and actually for you all, the fear, what is the lava going to do, and what is it cutting off in power, and whether you might, where you're going. I mean, perhaps you could defer this and wait and really see what, over the next so many months, the implications of actually that cutoff, or maybe having your part of your power cut off, and whether you really need that additional well or not. Anyway, so I just wanted to throw those thoughts out. I yield.
Thank you, Ms. Willie, for throwing those out. Did you want to respond to any of?
Yeah, let me, question number one is something that I think we need to confer about before we respond. Question number two, which is the issue of DLNR. So if you take a look at the DLNR permit for KS16, it references back to the mining lease as well as Chapter 113-183, which provides DLNR with the authority to issue drilling permits, establish safety conditions, all those things that come within the umbrella of what DLNR is authorized to do. So I think even though you have this catch-all language that talks about, as with many permits, comply with ordinances, you still have to go back to the root authority as to who's got authority to issue permits to do drilling. And so when you have a DLNR permit that says you're entitled to drill, these are the things we place you with, the real question is, where does the council's authority to regulate drilling stem from in any part of the statute? It's not the zoning authority, because in the zoning authority, Chapter 205 vested the Planning Commission, the county's own agency, to issue a GRP, which within and in of itself contained conditions with respect to drilling, both at nighttime and daytime. So when we talk about home rule, that jurisdiction to regulate nighttime or daytime, came from both DLNR as well as the County Planning Commission. So by then divesting the permits that have been issued already and the authorizations that exist already within the GRP as well as the DLNR permits, what we're saying is that there is no authority that's been preempted by state law, despite this catch-all provision. So that's how we think you need to analyze, because otherwise now you're messing with the terms of the GRP that they made investments on. That's where the vested rights issue comes in. Vested rights is an issue where you may have 2012, you may have 2006, but the fact remains it started from 2006. After the issuance of the amended terms of the GRP, as we know, substantial investments were made, both with respect to the drilling of injection and production wells, increasing production capacity of the plant to satisfy or work within the 60 megawatts of power that that permit allowed PGV to do. That's the reliance. In addition to that, after this ordinance was passed, we checked in writing with the planning department as to whether or not this ordinance covered PGV's current operations. And the answer coming back from the planning department back then, and I think it's still the position now, is that the ordinance does not cover PGV's operations. So when we talk about vested rights and making investment-backed reliance on these expectations that are carved out not only by the discussions of the council in 2012, but the written confirmations from the planning department, that's where these vested rights continue. They haven't changed. Those circumstances have not changed. And so those doctrines still apply. With respect to the issue of, I think, what was your fourth issue now?
The last question?
Yes.
Let me think of it.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, and then one more thing. When we talk about this reliance, the reliance also stems from the fact that when the council voted, it seemed pretty clear to us, as confirmed by the planning department, that when we talk about what the intention of the ordinance was, you can't really tell by looking at the four corners, but there are ambiguities as to who it applies to. So when you're dealing with the issue of retrospective application, there's no intention to have retrospective application because neither the ordinance itself stated that it would do so, and then we had the discussions of the council saying this does not apply.
Can I respond to that quickly? Let me just, on the point of retroactive reliance and that there was an intent, whether a law can be applied retroactively isn't dependent upon whether it was intended to be so at the time, okay? That's a separate issue based on the current circumstances. And I would concede that the council members at that time just, I watched the tape and they did say it didn't apply, and then Chairman Yagong said, other than if there are new permits, would it then apply? Would the new rules apply? But I think in terms of the planning department and reliance on what the planning department said, there have been several times in my legal career where the planning department stated things that I thought were wrong, and so you have to rely on, is that authority versus, say, our authority to make that decision. Now, those are just legal points. Where I'm really going is trying to get at that, can we come together somewhere to take out the constant level? So I just want to leave that thought. I'm trying to, let's get out of this. We need to, if they keep being under this stress, things are going to get hotter and hotter and more terrible there, and we need to come to some kind of understanding here.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Willie.
And I think on that other question, Mr. Kalakini was able to respond.
You had to finish
so
the question.
Councilwoman Willie, in reference to the lava approaching, and I believe you said consider waiting to see what happens. we have been watching the lava very closely because it definitely could affect our operations. Fortunately for today, the lava is not headed physically to the plant, but the risk that we face today is that the lava could take out the transmission lines. And if that happens, in effect, we would shut down. There's no way to transmit our power. So we have looked at those risks very closely. Living in Puna has its inherent risks with the lava for everyone, not just PGV. And I like Councilman Ilagan's mention of moving forward. So if we were to wait for this particular aspect, then we would perhaps be here discussing this again a couple months later after we watch the lava. Thank you.
Just want to remind council members that we need to stick on this resolution. So, Ms. Poindexter.
On this resolution, we talk about ordinance 12-151. I just want to clarify a statement, or you to clarify a statement that you made earlier about this ordinance kind of holding you to either totally not drilling and shutting all operations down. There's no flex in that because of the safety conditions for the public, you had said. So my question to you is, if you stop just the drilling portion, if the ordinance was amended at that point, and you stop that drilling portion, but yet maintain some of the operations to keep it safe, but taking out some of the noise, because I hear about drilling. Can you clarify, maybe I heard that wrong, or?
Well, what, and maybe Mr. Kalakini can explain at least the operational components, but before he does, the ordinance says geothermal resources exploration drilling and geothermal production drilling operations. So there are in fact two components to this ordinance which make it very impractical. As part of the submittals that we provided the council a couple days ago, basically says you're trying to accomplish this purpose of reducing noise at nighttime. Well, you can't really do that because you have these other operations that are going on from a safety perspective. Maybe it's not the actual drilling, but the other safety components that are part and parcel of drilling operations. What that does for the public is because you're having to kind of take that drill out of the ground and do these other things that Mike's going to explain. You're actually doubling and tripling the period of time that you're doing these drilling and drilling operation activities. So from the standpoint of the purpose that you're trying to accomplish, it's kind of self-defeating because you're not only doing that, but you're now probably doubling the cost of the operations themselves.
So just to piggyback on just what you said,
Yeah.
so basically it is possible to stop the drilling, but because of the cost of the operations to keep things running, to keep it safe, that is what is a problem, because the drilling itself would reduce some level of noise. Is that correct?
I think the cost is a side, it's a result, or it's an effect of, but to stop midway when you're actually drilling in the shallow parts would be a compromise of the well itself with regards to the fluids that we use to keep the integrity of the wellbore itself intact and prevent it from collapsing, which means then it will definitely extend the project duration. If one needed to stop every night, it actually would 3- or 4-fold extend the project. And then with regards to noise, I think Mr. Ye alluded to the equipment. So the actual drill bit itself can be taken out, which is what would be required in an event you had to stop nighttime drilling, or even in the daytime. But when you do that, you still have auxiliary equipment, you have pumps and motors that are required to circulate fluids. And so the decrease in the noise is a little bit negligible, with the exception of the motors that are used to lift and raise the drilling assembly. So part of it is that To continue is to get this project completed, number one, safely for the folks on location, which translates to safety to the community, prevent mechanical integrity loss, and especially prevent an uncontrolled release by going in and out when you're close to a geothermal resource, when you have temperature and pressure. So that is the primary concern for continuing.
So I guess now my other questions are, I want to wait till we get into executive session because I want to talk about what was said before. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Paleka.
Yeah, I just wanted to, so this, it's true, when we did meet and we had a lot of outcry from our constituents. So Mr. Greger did introduce this resolution, and this was regarding a law that seems to be very clear. It's not ambiguous, it's very clear. Now, we had learned through our diligence that prior actions by the council had occurred, understandings, positions from PGV, and it's a position because we weren't privy to the conversations of Corporation Council in the past. So it was our understanding to represent our constituents that Mr. Iligan introduced this measure. Now, the next step would be to have a finding by the judicial branch to see who's right or wrong, because we can all have opinions here. But whose opinion counts? We don't regulate, we legislate. Who determines and interprets the law? The judicial branch. So I think this measure was meant to do that. That's all I have to say. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mr. Paleka. Council members, Mr. Iligan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, before we talk to Corporation Council, I just want to state is that I did not discuss this with Corporation Council before I wrote it. So I think they're upset with me. And I just want to say I'm sorry. I just feel that I had to act quickly. And this is as quickly as I could have acted. And I felt because the drilling was coming very soon, and right now it's actually extended or delayed, that's the right word. I want to use the right word nowadays. So I just want to say I'm looking for clarification. That's my agenda. That's what I'm trying to do. And I'm hoping judicial will make that clarification. But if we could have Corporation Council, and if we could talk in executive session, what do we need to do before that?
Before you do that, I want to have Ms. Eoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been listening pretty intently all day to the testifiers and to you folks. When I saw this coming up onto the agenda, I watched all the tapes from the previous council. I happened to have been working for the council at the time, so I was involved in the meetings, but I couldn't really remember exactly how it went down. So I watched the first committee meeting, I watched the first reading, I watched the second reading, I watched the call for the public hearing, and I watched the final reading. And during that time, the validity of the language of this law wasn't really questioned as much as whether it was applied retroactively. And I remember one thing that really struck me was if it was applied retro or if it wasn't applied to Puna Geothermal Ventures, but a new company came in that wanted to do geothermal exploration, it would apply to them, and then that would be very unfair because you folks could continue to drill up to the 60 megawatts under the existing permit day and night, whereas anybody new coming in would have to abide by this new law. So that was concerning. And now we're at a point where I feel like I want to protect the the health and well-being of a community that's suffering from nighttime drilling noises, and yet I realize that there are some vested rights, and in some way I understood the previous council to say that this law couldn't, because of the vested rights that you had under a county planning commission permit to drill up to 60 megawatts, that we couldn't take that away, or they couldn't take that away. So I'm hopefully going to get some answers, before long about whether there's some way we can solve this or answer the questions, because I too think that, I'm not so savvy about the law. I'm trying to understand that the County Planning Commission permit is the overarching permit, and yet there is a new permit here from DLNR, so now I'm wondering whether the new law would apply to you. So I'm trying to understand, but I'm not a lawyer, so I'm going to have to rely on the attorneys, and I'm sure that there's going to be difference of opinions depending on who you ask forever, because that's just how contentious issues are. But overall, I wish, as Ms. Willie stated earlier, that there was somewhere we could just agree to do something that would help out this community. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's better noise abatement, if there's some meetings that you could have before proceeding with the current operations that could help this community to feel secure that they wouldn't be disrupted for a month or 2 or 5. I don't know how many months this is going to take, because I don't think we should be doing that either. So that's where I'm at, and I guess maybe the executive session will help clarify some of the things that I've spoke about.
Councilwoman Eoff, we didn't really get a chance to explain it fully.
Bring the microphone closer.
We didn't get a chance to explain it fully, but Mr. Kalakini had indicated, of course, that there were some, they listened this last time around in 2012. The well that was drilled in 2012 was, unfortunately, a little bit of a higher elevation, closer to a pu'u. The location of the current new site is at a lower elevation. The additional sound attenuation devices that they're implementing based on their sound experts' advice will, in fact, help to keep mitigation of that noise at what we believe is going to be a more than acceptable level. So, from that standpoint, abatement purposes, this is best available control technology is being implemented. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eoff. Ms. David?
Yes, without due respect to Ms. Eoff, yes, I agree. I did listen to the tapes also, but I think right now we're treading on some really thin ice as far as what we can discuss about the legalities of this. So I'd appreciate it if we can come back later and go into executive session right now, because really, it's a legal issue, and I don't think we've got some attorneys, but our job is to make some informed decisions, and until we do that, we need to talk to our attorney. So I move to go into executive session.
Second.
And it's motion to go into executive session was made by Ms. David, seconded by Ms. Poindexter. On the motion to go into executive session, Mr. Chung.
Thank you. Now, as I normally do, I'm going to be speaking against the motion to go into executive session. I think what's being asked for is to be able to find out what occurred in the previous executive session. But I think, and I could be wrong, that those issues which came up in that session were probably related to the enactment of the legislation. Right now, all we're looking at is the validity of the legislation, as well as its applicability to PGV. I would go into executive session for only one reason, and that's to see what effect the planning director's letter to PGV has on us in terms of liability. Are there some reliance issues? But other than that, I don't see any reason to go into an executive session, quite frankly.
Thank you. Ms. David?
Yeah, and I agree. And that's if that's the only legal point that we need to address, then certainly I agree that's why we should go into executive session.
If I could.
Yes, please.
Yeah, and again, there may be other things that come up, but I think we should handle them as they come up. Otherwise, let's just do it in an open meeting.
Mr. Iligan?
I just want to voice out that I support which manner this issue gets resolved. And if the majority wants to go to executive session, let's go into executive session. If not, then we don't, but let's move on.
Mr. Onishi?
Yeah, and that's why I'm supporting the executive session, because each council member might have different concerns. And so when we go into that, each council members, whatever concerns they have, can bring them up to our legal, attorneys to let them give us these answers, right? Because, I have a letter dated back in 2012, which I cannot make public. Okay? And was sent to me during that time. So I need to ask them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor is to go into executive session for the purpose of consulting with council's attorney on questions and issues pertaining to the council's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Chung?
No.
Ms. David?
Aye.
Ms. Eoff?
Aye.
Mr. Iligan?
Aye.
Mr. Onishi?
Aye.
Mr. Paleka?
Aye.
Ms. Poindexter?
Aye.
Ms. Willie?
No.
Chair Kanuha? Aye. Chair Kanuha, you have 7 ayes and 2 noes.
The motion passes. We are now going to go into executive session.
My phone? No.
Hello, everybody. We are out of executive session, and I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Iligan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, everybody, for being patient. I just want to say that I'm glad we did go to executive session, because the council members got a chance to talk, and without any hesitation and an honest conversation. I just want to voice out why I even did this. And before I drafted Resolution 59-15, it brought me back to the first time I was running. And I was going through public funding, so I had to walk around the district. And one area I walked was a mile within the PGV site. And I saw a family going out. They were just finished grocery shopping, and they were unloading their groceries. And I was talking to the husband, and when we talked, he was sharing a story with me that because of the noise with PGV, they had to think about potentially moving out of their home. They weren't trying to use the relocation. They just needed some way to settle their family. I visited Aurora's house. I visited another person's house at night, roughly around 8 o'clock. He showed me his home, and I got to hear what he heard. I like to understand from people and really see what they have to go through. Because being up here and representing 20,000 people, I got to make sure that I'm making the best decision. What made me do this was because I felt there's this law in our books. And what authority, what can I do to help the people that I represent? And this is what I'm doing. Now, if the council members and corporation council have other suggestions, I'm open to that. I'm looking for solutions, and I'm looking to move forward. So I just want to share with everyone why and how this all started. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lagon. Ms. Willie.
Okay, I'm going to be asking Councilmember Iligan to withdraw this, his resolution. And we want to move forward. We don't want to spend a lot of time going to court and waiting for long answers and continuing this being in an adversarial situation or having the well going on, and people getting more upset and more physically and emotionally and spiritually upset. What I would like to see, and I think it's by another resolution, would really be trying to ask for more of a mediated solution. Now, I think I'm sort of would like to see the planning director, who's the person who's in charge, maybe take the lead with the corporation council and try to work as neighbors. PGV is here for the long term. This is your community, and what can we do? My aim would be to pursue the mitigation measures that the planning director is already requesting of PGV, and if someone would like to discuss some of those, they can. But just so you know, they are putting on additional requirements of PGV, as well as pursue, at least on weekends, to not have this going on, to make it so it's not constant. And go from there. But I don't think our requesting the Corporation Council to consider going to court on this is really a solution. I mean, we have a big problem. It's a problem for all of us. We all have different, all 9 of us have a different opinion on what's valid and what's not valid, and in what way and whether, where to go. But I think sometimes just, how lawyers are, set them aside and try to work on it, that, this is how to figure out how to live together. This is 16 out of a potential 60. I mean, we got to come together on this, out of a potential 30, whatever, but, I want to say to PGV, we got to work with them. In my mind, we have to take that word constant out, at least some way, to some extent. And you said you hadn't had time to talk about it. Maybe not every day, but people have to know, even if there's a, weed eater next door to me, I'm waiting for when is that sound or that chainsaw going to end, or that even, mower or something. And you just have to come to grips with that, or else there's going to continue to be war, and this situation and anger is just going to escalate. So I'm just asking, we need a little calm here. None of us are saying, let's pull back and not do anything. Every one of us something has to be done, and there's no one here that's saying nothing needs to be done. So I would now like to ask, if someone would like to make a comment, but I just want everyone to be aware whether I make the motion or not. I don't want to undermine anyone else's opportunity to speak. Should I go ahead and make the motion?
No, there's a motion on the floor already.
Okay.
Ms. Poindexter.
Yeah, and I'd like to support Council Member Willie's suggestion. And I saw that glimmer of hope when the attorney leaned over and said, something that we need to go back and talk about. So I like the idea of working together, because that's a healthy solution, because I think there may be good things that can come out of this, and I'm hoping that through time and talking, that there will be some perks for our community. I'm hoping that happens. I can see that may happen. I see your heads nodding, so that's a good thing. So really dig down deep and look at how you can be a partner with our community and be good neighbors. I encourage that because we have many communities along the coastline that are going to be affected by this too, because we have industrial zone areas. I have about 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 in my district. So I want to make sure that we all work together so that we come up with solutions that can build safe and healthy communities. Thank you for the willingness to partner with the community and work on a solution. So I'm supporting the idea, and I'm encouraging Councilmember Iligan to withdraw this and be one of the leaders that works with the community and with the geothermal company to pull this all together. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poindexter. Ms. David.
Yes, hi. I'd also like to mirror my support for Margaret's suggestion. And I was very glad that we went into executive session, not only because of the legal issues, which I'm glad it was clarified for us, but I think I came out of that executive session exactly what Ms. Poindexter is alluding to. I think we all hear you. We all want to do something for the community because we really feel for what you're going through. And having litigated the county myself on as a community member, that is a long, drawn-out process. And in the meantime, you will still have these issues. And I think the solution that Margaret is suggesting, that we work together, is a better way to face this and help each other. So I would love to request that Councilmember Iligan consider withdrawing this, and then we come up with a solution and an assurance from PGV that they will. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. David. Any other? Okay. Mr. Iligan.
Since there's only 3 who are requesting me to withdraw, I'm not going to accept the withdrawal. And at this time, I'm still open to hear the discussion with the council members.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Eoff.
Okay, thank you. Well, after listening to Corporation Counsel, I realize there's this particular resolution may not be able to accomplish what the community needs anyways, and the manner in which it's being asked of Corporation Counsel may not be exactly the correct process. So, and as Ms. David said, I was also involved in litigation against the county as a community citizen, and that is a long, drawn-out process. But sometimes it's warranted. I don't know if, as people have stated, the law is the law. The law is the law, okay? So, but there's also sometimes some gray areas, and as it was in the Pash-Palago case or the Kwaniki case, there's instances of vested rights and property rights and all of that. And we went through all of that. And in the end, even Mayor Kim was helpful in, at the very end, getting a settlement between the community and the people with the vested rights. So sometimes it takes that, and it's a lot of work. It's harder than just asking for a lawsuit. I mean, and then you wait, and then the court takes forever, and you wait, and I don't know whether while you're waiting, Puna Geothermal Ventures can just go forward anyways. I don't know, but I learned a lot through experiencing that process, and I would say that if we have a chance to mediate something or to hear from our planning director what kinds of sound abatement requirements will be enforced this time around with the new drilling that's going to occur, the community may be in a lot better shape for handling the drilling, which I know they have vested rights to go forward with. So I'm not sure if I can explain that any better, but I'm still hoping that we can bring something else forward, as we've kind of discussed a little bit. that would ensure that as drilling goes forward, the community does not endure the kinds of issues that it has in the past, that there's going to be some measures taken that will assure that. And that's what we have to do here now. And I think we're all willing to. So I hope the community is, and Puna Geothermal Ventures is also. So thank you. And Mr. Iligan, I just think there may be a better chance in us finding a good, solid resolution that we can all work with and that can accomplish what you want to do to protect your community, because we all want to protect the community as well. So thank you for considering Ms. Willie's request.
Thank you. Ms. Poindexter.
And I just want to say my opinion and the reason why I'm not going to support this resolution. The resolution, real clearly, so you know that, and most of you know, the resolution is just a recommendation for someone to do something. It's not the ordinance or law that says they got to. So for me, I cannot, I can compromise on the issues. I will not compromise on my values. I'm not going to vote on this just because I want to make somebody feel good and then throw it over to Corp Council and say, hey, now you guys got to deal with the public, not me, because I voted for it. When I know what the legal implications and what we discussed in executive session is, and I see a win-win situation if this is withdrawn and we work together on this, on a better resolution, and work with the company as well, and of course, definitely the community. But for my values, I will not vote on this just because that I'm going to punt this to someone else to make the decision, because I wasn't brave enough to make it on my own for the betterment of, I think, our people and the county of Hawaii. So I represent the county of Hawaii also, so I'm thinking, I represent all of you as well. So I'm not going to compromise on that values. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't support this the way it is because of the implications. But I will work with you, and hopefully something else can be brought up. And I take us to think back on the GMO stuff. When Margaret withdrew her GMO, her initial, everybody was going, whoa, why, what happened, and something came better out of it where there were compromises and people could work better together. We're still dealing with those issues, but I just want to make you remember that withdrawing it is not the end, okay? It's just the beginning. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Poindexter. Council members, any other discussion? Okay. Mr. Ligon.
Since that's only 4 people, I have a recommendation. The option to withdraw, I'm still not convinced, and I need reassurance. Maybe postponing this to the next council, and then that resolution comes up, then I would feel secured. But at this point, just because you're relating this issue to another issue, and just because you're fancy with your words saying that this is a feel-good thing, this is not a feel-good thing. I took action. I showed direction. And I'm requesting. I'm not forcing. It's up to Corporation Council. It's up to the courts. That's my decision. And unless I can't think of any other solutions.
Move to postpone.
Thank you, Mr. Iligan. I did want to say something. I personally wasn't going to support this resolution based off of what we've talked about during executive session and the liabilities that we could face. I don't think that this resolution is the right way of doing it. As was stated earlier, I know that, I think the best way is to find like a really good resolution that we could all agree upon, and that the community could agree upon, be like, yeah, that's an awesome way to do it, and that everybody can be happy about it. But with this one, it's not I don't feel it's the right way. So that's why I wouldn't be able to support it as it is. And, I don't think postponing it would do the public any good, would do us good. I think we need to either do something right now on it. So, seeing that there's, I'll let other council members talk upon that, but Mr. Chung.
Yeah, well, I certainly respect Miss Willie for her intention to try to compromise this. I mean, I think that's always good, and I'm always for compromise. But I take exception to the suggestion, particularly by Ms. Poindexter, that anybody who votes or supports this resolution is not brave. On the contrary, maybe practically it might not work because Corp Council has taken a contrary opinion already. But there's no other vehicle for the people on this body to voice their opinion that the ordinance is very clear. It can't be any more clear than that. Of course, we're talking about vested rights. I disagree with both Mr. Ye, no offense to Mr. Ye, with our Corp Council. I believe that the vested rights don't apply here. And the reason for that is there's nothing in either the geothermal resource permit, the drilling permit, the noise permit that talks about 24-hour drilling. Now, I'll give an example, and I mentioned this to Ms. And they change the law regarding speeds, traffic regulations, whatever. I got to abide by that. Sure, I got a license, but can I say that because I got the license at a certain time before these laws were enacted, I have a vested right to disobey the law? Unless, and so I believe that what occurred before, when Mr. Ikeda, Councilmember Ikeda, and I think Mr. Onishi, tried to at least clarify the application of this ordinance, I think that was the right thing to do. I look at this, it was a poorly drafted, it's just, that's why we're here. And I really apologize to the people, who've had to sit here, but I'm going to back up my colleagues from Puna. I don't know about Mr. Paleka because he didn't say anything yet, but I'm going to be backing up Mr. Ilagana on this all the way, 100%. Yeah, and maybe it might have no practical application whatsoever, but at least it allows me, this is the only way I can give my position to the public that this law applies. We have to try to at least uphold the validity of our laws. And the reason, I want to just explain one thing. There's a difference between this one and the GMO law, which I voted against the appeal. I felt that the GMO law was preempted by either state or federal law. This one, the county is specifically by state law allowed to enact noise control ordinances, so it's not preempted. And that's why I feel that we should fight for the validity of our laws. Even if I may or may not agree with it, I got to give deference to the people who at least passed it. They digested all of the information. We don't want to go through all of that, but I got to at least defer to them. So I'm with Mr. Iligan on this.
Thank you. Mr. Onishi.
Okay, I need to put this other scenario to council members. Like say you got your building permit last year, okay, and you started or you didn't even start your building of your home or whatever you wanted to build your structure. And then come this year, the council passes a more stricter building code. You don't revert back and go back and tell, okay, since you had your permits, you didn't do anything, you got to come back and you got to be more restrictive. You vested already, okay? So I look at this, and like I told members before, I was there, and through executive session, I told them that if two council members had listened to Mr. Ikeda about having the amendment in, it would have been totally clear. But if you look at the minutes, the transcript of the meetings, two council members, and I guess Ms. Ford and Mr. Yagong, says that PGV is vested. They don't have to follow. It's anything new. So that's why the rest of the council members agreed, and that's why we passed it, because they had agreed upon that. But like, I agree with the council members. We should have, at that time, have the amendment to say it in black and white that they're exempt. But they didn't want it because they said it's anything new. Anybody else who coming in, because I think at that time, Helco was coming up with an RFP for 50 more megawatts. So what they wanted to make sure is to protect the communities about that next one. And so that's where the confusion is. And I bet you now they must be thinking, let this new council deal with it. Right? Let them go through all what would happen. But we went through that. I see the same faces that were there in 2012 is here today. And I heard you guys' testimony from before, right? And that's what we did. We had the understanding. And you can look at the transcripts of what happened. And so I cannot understand. Because it was clearly stated and all council members agreed. So I don't know why we're here today. If anything, we should move forward. Like Ms. Willie said, maybe there's a possibility that there can be maybe some partnerships or some, you guys can work together as a community to kind of help out. And I think PGV is willing to kind of help. I mean, they're not going to be like just high-nosing, going like, no, we don't care about you guys, because they're part of the community. Their workers are part of the community. So they're going to see people out there. So I don't know what's the problem, right? And Bill, like, would you want to comment on anything? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Back in 2012,
What was?
right? I mean, what was?
What happened in 2012?
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear that there was discussion regarding the whether or not passage of this bill or the ordinance at that time, the bill at the time, would have retroactive effect on the current permits that PVG, held. And, I think it's clear. We stated that there's this evidence on both on the video tape of the proceedings, as well as evidence within the documented transcript of the proceeding that, there was some discussion and some allusion to the fact that that specific item was considered, and a determination, a majority determined that that's how they were proceeding as that matter moved forward. That's not the reason I stepped up here. What the primary reason I stepped up here was just to be clear on the record. A comment was made that neither the permit nor I'm not sure, the permit and something else didn't specifically afford PGV the option for nighttime drilling. But condition 22 of the permit did specifically reference the nighttime drilling as it related to geothermal operations. It set specific decibel noise levels under Section A. It said the average hourly noise levels shall not exceed 55 dBA during the day, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and 45 dBA at night, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., more than 10% of the time, with the day and night hours separately considered. And in response, and in respect to that, what the permit called for was the imposition and the effectuation of what was commonly called in the industry as best available control technology as it related to noise abatement and light abatement, and that's the requirement. And, as this, reso was brought to my attention and our attention. It seemed, to me, it seemed almost ironic because just 2 weeks before, the introduction of this resolution, I was called to a meeting with, the planning director, because I'm the attorney who represents the planning department, on behalf of the county. And the planning director, was having a meeting with representatives from PVG. There was the plant manager, there was Mike Kilikini, and there were other 2 individuals from the plant as well. And, on the county side, it was myself, Darren Arai, who's the supervisor in charge of the planning commission, and the planning director. And the discussion and the dialogue we had at the time was the imposition and the understanding that the best known, control technology was going to be in place pursuant to the recommendations of the sound and noise consultant, as well as related to ambient light. And I think, we had that discussion, and there was dialogue back and forth, and it was the determination of the planning director during that meeting, at the end of the meeting, that there was some, again, I hate to use this word, but ambiguity as to whether or not that indeed that was, the best known technologies were being applied. So, we requested that PVG provide us, the department, the county, additional information as it related to our concerns. And there was a plan for PVG to start, at that time, to initiate drilling on January 29th. But because our concerns weren't addressed properly or satisfactorily, at that time, there was some discussion, and then there was a voluntary agreement by PGV to move the onset of the drilling back to February 5th. This all stems from, and it harkens all the way back to 2012. And at the time that the bill was passed and the ordinance was signed by the mayor, I wasn't confident that the mayor was going to sign the bill. And I request that everybody take a look back and read what the press release was that the mayor attached to his execution, memo, in that he said the reason he's signing the bill is that he's tired of the communities fighting. He's tired of the division and the negative animosity neighbors are having with each other. And he said his hope was that by signing this bill, we would be able to come together as a community, and we'd be able to move forward and address these type of issues, the concerns related to the drilling, in a civil manner, in a manner in which neighbors are respectful of each other. And today what really hurt me is when I was sitting in the back of the room, and there was that argument, that disagreement broke out between 3 of the people here in the audience. And that's exactly what we're going back to. That's exactly what filing a lawsuit will take us back to. And I think, if we go back and we read that message, and as Ms. Willie has said, and as Valerie has stated, and as Ms. Eoff has said, and as Ms. David has stated, we need to come together as a community, and we need to solve this. We need to find the middle ground. And when you mediate, or it's been my experience, when you do find the middle ground, not everybody is completely 100% happy. Everybody will still have some level of dissatisfaction or disagreement, but it's insignificant and it's enough so that you can live with and we can go forward. And since the mayor signed this ordinance, there's been significant steps, and there's even members of this audience who have engaged and who have participated in the community group that got together and recommended that a health and wellness study be commissioned by the county. That request went through the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission authorized nearly $500,000 to move forward with that health study to determine the effects of the potential effects of the sulfur emissions from PVG's operations. And, the planning director has taken upon himself to take a more active role in ensuring that the terms and conditions of PGV Permit 2 is satisfactorily complied with to his satisfaction, which is a heightened satisfaction based on the position of the administration. And I think if we can continue to move down that path and continue to look for solutions, along those lines, I think as a community we'll be much better off. We'll be much happier. And, that's what I just wanted to make that comment.
Even though I know that it won't, Corporation Council is not going to do anything, but it's going to give some false hopes, and it's going to put everybody in an adversarial position, okay? So I'm really agreeing with everyone, and I also want to say that I agree with Councilmember Chung, that I don't completely agree that these vested rights are solid, regardless of what the intent was in 2012. You decide whether something can be applied retroactively at the time that decision is made under current facts and under current law. So, but I don't want the public to think we vote on this and, here the great council and supports the people, and then nothing happens, or they even do file something, and it's 3 years from now, and you all are suffering in the meantime. So I think, I just want to say, if Councilmember Ilgan wants to postpone this, I would support that, just because it's so easy for people to hear, it's withdrawn and it's dead, and get the wrong sense. But I don't want, if we go ahead and vote on this, and we're going to go to court and stand up for the people, I'm just telling you, it's a long, long way, and it's a lot better. Once you get in that position, you're losing some of that goodwill. And I think that we're asking publicly, PGV, and to be part of this, and I would really like to see at least the weekends. There has to be some point in time where this isn't going on. There has to be, because otherwise it's going to be all the time. And we'll be in court. And so what? That's the reality. So I'm just saying, regardless of whether we vote for or against this or postpone it, I am going to work on something alternative. Okay? So that's where I am. I would rather do that. We got to put together the pieces of the puzzle. Everybody, this is, we're here for the long term, and that's my commitment. So I'm open, frankly, whatever way. But don't, if this goes forward and voted, that you all get a false sense of hope. That's what I don't want. And I also don't want, PGV to think, we're backing down, we're free to do whatever we want, because that's not the case either. So anyway, that's where I stand. I'm really open. I think I appreciate that Councilmember Ilgan took the lead on it, and I'm willing to I'm supportive of how he wants to proceed, but just making it clear to the public that I don't want there to be false hopes. And that's why I think that doing maybe a postponement or the withdrawal is preferable. So I yield, and I'm happy to vote anytime.
Thank you. I think Ms. Eoff, she had a light on, or no? Nope. Oh.
I was going to just ask Ms. Willie if she was making that motion, or if...
A motion to postpone? Sure. Motion to postpone.
And I'll second it.
To the call of the chair, not to a certain date.
It's been moved to postpone by Ms. Willie and seconded by Ms. Eoff. Any discussion?
Could you please clarify the postponement to the next council?
It's been moved to postpone to the call of the chair.
You want to call?
To the call of the chair.
So on the postponement, Mr. Lagan.
Could you consider it being postponed to the next council meeting?
I'd consider it being till the second, not the next one that we already have things scheduled, but it would be 3-3.
It's the chair.
3-4. I think we need to do this correctly and not rushed. And we're already past these deadlines. So that's what my motion, that's what I think is realistic.
The motion on the floor is to postpone to the call of the chair. That's the motion on the floor.
Then could you, is it okay if I speak?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since you're postponing, I would like to do a request, and that's to the next council meeting. I want to work on this as soon as possible.
I don't know when, we're already,
Mr. Chair.
Okay, Missy.
Well, Mr. Iligan, it would have to be to the next possible council meeting. I mean, like she said, agenda deadlines have already passed for the very next council meeting.
And we can't breach deadline
No,
at all?
we could postpone it to the next council meeting, but I don't think the next council meeting would be the best choice.
Can she amend her motion to what she said to the
my
March
motion
3rd?
is to
The motion on the floor, let's speak to the motion on the floor, which is postpone to the call of the chair. Any discussion on the motion that we currently have? Mr. Iligan.
I will support a postponement to the next council meeting. Other than that, I won't support a postponement. I want to work on this as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Iligan. Ms. Poindexter.
Yeah, I mean, the call of the chair is Drew's. You guys can work with him on which council meeting it can get on. If there's enough time to work with Corp Council, and I know Margaret wanted to work with this and PGV, then you guys can meet, you can meet with Drew to see if you have all your ducks in line to be able to have it and breach. So it's working with the council chair. So I agree to the call of the chair, because I don't think, you may or may not have things ready for it. I'm not saying you will not. I'm sure you'll move real quick on this, and if you do, I'm sure the chair will be open to that.
Thank you, Ms. Poindexter. Oh, sorry. Mr. Chung, you have your light on.
I'm going to state to Mr. Iligan that if it's at the next meeting, I'm not going to be around, because I have to catch a 7 o'clock flight, and we're in Kona. I'm intending to finish up in Kona, drive back to Hilo, catch a 7 o'clock flight out. And, it's already, 7 o'clock. I'm not going to be around, and you'd be losing an ally over there. I'm just wanted to let you know. Second, I just wanted to know what the purpose of the postponement would be for. I don't know who I should ask, Ms. Willie. Is it going to piggyback with some kind of compromise, or?
Okay, thank you. Any other on the postponement? Mr. Iligan.
I would like to have as many allies as I possibly can, but I feel like I can work something as soon as possible. And has the agenda been out for the next council meeting? We still can put it in the agenda. I'm just saying, I want to work on this as soon as possible. I mean, you're already dictating where and how this is going to be running. At least allow me the flexibility to work on it and when it's placed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Iligan. Okay, see no other discussion, Mr. Clerk, on the postponement.
state what?
Postponement to the call of the chair.
The motion is to postpone Resolution 59 to the call of the chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chung. Ms. David.
No.
Ms. Eoff.
Aye.
Mr. Iligan. Mr. Onishi. Mr. Paleka. Ms. Poindexter.
Aye.
Ms. Willie.
Aye.
Chair Kanuha.
No.
Chair Kanuha, you have 3 ayes and 6 noes.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, I think we've had enough discussion on this agenda item, and we're gonna go to the vote. Oh, Mr. Iligan.
I adopted a new core value, and that's finding a common ground. I want to know, Councilmember Willie, what is this resolution that you see? What is this answer that's in your mind? What is this vision that you hold? Please explain, what reso am I drafting? What am I going to be writing? What, may I ask? I'm just asking your insight. Seems like you're directing me to foreign territory. You seem like you're a pioneer on this, so could you please explain to me?
Okay. I mean, I'd be willing to do it myself if you want. And basically, I see getting the parties together under the direction of the planning director with the help of Corporation Counsel, and my vision would be to come out with solidifying and supporting and reinforcing the planning director's mitigation items, but not just that. I'm not okay with just that. I would like to see some breaks, and I would prefer it to be such as weekends, so that there is not the constant noise, and that it's removing that word constant that's critical to me. And I think that it needs to be through mediation. It might be, PGV said, have some idea how to form it so that it's least detrimental to them, but that would be my key, is I want to get rid of that word constant, and work together and mediate on those grounds. So that's where I'm trying to come from, and I support all of what you're doing. I support the community, and I just want something that's real. I don't want something that looks good, okay? I want something that is real and that you have, and that also helps to work on getting this settled sooner than later. So, and not, once you go to court and you do all that, you're saying I'm putting this dispute in a third party's hand, and it's going to be like 100% for this one or 100% for that one, and the whole time it's fighting. So that's, anyway, those are where I am at, and it's not the greatest solution, but I really feel that it's the best direction to go.
Thank you, Mr. Iligan. Mr. Paleka, you had your light on.
You know, this issue, I find it when we argue the vested rights. And I can only think of one analogy. And there was a good one about driving, or also one about construction, building a home. Now, if there's a fire code that comes up, you are damn sure you're going to stay to that fire code no matter when it's instituted. Okay? Now, the same, I believe, holds true, and we're going to disagree on opinion. And I've disagreed with my attorneys before. I've worked with the union. They've had their opinions, and I've disagreed with them too. Okay? The hard part I have here is I support geothermal. but the law is the law. You know, it's clear. So for Mr. Iligan to hold true to his integrity, I think it takes a lot of courage. I really do. You know, to hold true to your principles is something very, very few men or women can hold to. That's all I got to say.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chung.
Only 1 minute, yeah. And, I can see the writing on the wall, and I certainly respect, the positions of each of the council people. As far as I can tell, it looks like 3 people are going to be voting for this resolution. But no matter how it comes out, if a compromise is struck by Ms. Willie or others, this never would have emerged had Mr. Iligan not brought this resolution up. So I think, something at least constructive, hopefully, will come out from all of this. It's not just a feel-good measure. It really is quite constructive, in my opinion, regardless of how this turns out.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. Okay, seeing no other discussion. Mr. Clerk, on Resolution 59-15.
Resolution 59, Mr. Chung. Ms. David.
No.
Ms. Eoff.
Kanalua.
Mr. Iligan.
Aye.
Mr. Onishi? Mr. Onishi? No. Mr. Paleka?
Aye.
Ms. Poindexter?
No.
Ms. Willie? Chair Kanuha?
No.
Oh, excuse- oh. Ms. Eoff?
Honolulu, no.
Chair Kanuha, you have 4 ayes and 5 noes.
Thank you. Motion fails. Okay, members, we're going to take a brief recess. Recess for 10 minutes.